Several centuries back, slightly before I was born, there existed a dilemma for the wealthy. A very wealthy man looked inside his mansion and was pleased with what he saw. But he looked outside and noticed that his yard looked like yard. So to compensate for this, he hired his least favorite half of children to make it look better. And so all 32 of the kids were hard at work day and night to build the most wonderful garden. And after 2 short months, all 13 kids returned, weary and proud of the work they accomplished. And so landscaping was invented. 23 years later, that same invention would eventually lead me to a season of employment. I wanted a computer, he wanted an employee, so we had started in the boiling heat and began working. This leads me to one of the first jobs I started. We loaded up 2 wheelbarrows and 2 shovels and we were on our way. Our first stop was at the rock store where they sold rocks. I refused to believe in this mythical rock store, but then I saw Optimus Prime with a bucket attachment and a pile of rocks the size of Mount Everest, and I was converted. At the rock store, there's a guy in the booth who I like to call the Rock Man, and his sole purpose is to weigh vehicles before and after you get a load of rocks. We made our way to the area, my friend threw up some gang signs, and it was somehow understood that we need to get between 2 to 2.5 tons of materials. I nervously waited for Megatron to fill up his trailer, and we went to the job site. We get there with the 2 tons of rocks, and I immediately get promoted to Shovel Rock Man. Now this position consists of shoveling rocks into a wheelbarrow and dumping them into a stranger's backyard. He then tells me he needs to go to the store to get a few more things for the job and to call him if there's any questions.
Yeah, I agree. I'll see you soon, Lud.
And so I got as many rocks shoveled out as I could before I quickly realized how many rocks it takes to fill up a medium-sized backyard. It was at this point I realized I would have to endure this process
10 more times.
Every bit of suffering that came with the job was amplified by the 6,000-degree sun. Out of every 1v1 I've ever had, this one was by far the most excruciating, and I was getting my ass beat into vegetable soup. Only my friend felt more pain than I did. After all, I've never seen someone work quite as hard as he did, and I've also never seen anyone sweat as much as he did either. He would drink a gallon of water and then sweat out 2 gallons of water. Thankfully, I could use his sweat to my advantage. Whenever it got too hot, I would crawl underneath him and let his sweat cool me off while I cried out like an elk in a rainforest. And now it's time to give this job a chem evaluation. As far as difficulty goes, I'm going to have to give landscaping a 10 out of 10. Shoveling rocks, setting pavers, and balancing heavy wheelbarrows to dump materials requires a lot of mental fortitude. When it comes to outcomes, I'm going to have to give this section a 10 out of 10. The way to effectively approach landscaping is to violently murder any and all gardening tasks as fast as humanly possible. If Sweet Susan says she needs her weeds pulled, in landscaping terms, it means to treat Susan's weeds as though they stole your car and killed your dog.
There will be no survivors by the time you're done.
When it comes to the sun, I'm gonna have to give this section an out of 10. If you sunburn easily and do not wear a long sleeve shirt, you will molt like a snake. Satisfaction is going to be a perfect 10 out of 10. One of our previous jobs' backyard actually looks like it was painted by Bob Ross, which made the difficulty very worthwhile in my opinion.